Hey guys, this is Steve with DQ Barbecue, and today we're going to do a review of my Akorn Kamado cooker. Y'all hang out. So if y'all have been following along on my channel, you know back in December I got an early Christmas present of a char griller Akorn Kamado cooker. And since then, we've been using it pretty much exclusively for all the cooks both on our channel and the ones I just do for me and my family. And those that you've been paying attention, you probably caught on to me with the breadth of what we've been cooking. I've been trying to touch everything that a traditional ceramic Kamado should be able to do and see if the Akorn can handle it. We've done some long cooks with a pork butt, I've done some shorter cooks with a venison, I've done some intermediate cooks with some chicken and ribs. I don't think I showed you guys that. I've done some high, and I mean crazy high temp steak sears. We even did some pizza, and just to see how it turned out, I baked some pecan tasties on it too. At this point, I feel like I've got a pretty good idea, but I can give you a rundown of my review of the Akorn. So what this is a 22-inch metal Kamado that comes set up with a cart that I got for $299. Again, this is a Kamado set with cart for $299. To put that in a little bit of perspective, a Big Green Egg XL, which is their 24-inch model, comes in at $1,200. Then to add the cart is anywhere from $600 and up depending on what you buy. I know it's not the same thing, but I just want to level set a little bit with what those prices are. The Akorn allows you to step into that Kamado class without the huge initial investment and lets you see if the Kamado style fits your lifestyle and the cooking you like to do. And from what I've found, it's a pretty good representation of the class. Everything I've felt a traditional ceramic Kamado should be able to do, I've been able to do. There's never been a time where I felt limited by the Akorn's capabilities. I've cooked what I've wanted, the way I wanted to cook it, and the food has came out tasting great so far. I really expected the Akorn to come up short in the area of the equipment. You know, I'm a firm believer in you get what you pay for, and like I said, I don't feel like we had to pay a whole lot for this. So to start with, we have the cart. Now, this took me about an hour and a half to assemble with the help of my 5-year-old daughter. As I was putting it together, you know, I could see some of those cost savings. Nothing is stainless as far as hardware goes. The countertop is just a plastic molded piece. But I could also see some intelligent design too. For instance, the entire bottom rack, where it could have just been plastic and been rigid enough, it's all metal. And that doesn't sound like a whole lot until you've got a 15-pound cast iron grill grate that comes standard on this thing that's piping hot and you need to put it somewhere. You know, I grill on a wooden deck. I really don't want to set that down there. And if I was on the grass, I wouldn't want to sit down there either. So it's nice that they were conscientious enough in their design to go ahead and give us a place to put that. Speaking of the grate, let's go ahead and move on to that. Now I'm as big of a fan of cast iron as the next guy. And if you've been around grilling very long, you've seen the Craycourt grates that a lot of people like to run on their Webers. When I saw that Char Griller put a cast iron grill grate on the Akorn as standard equipment, I was pretty excited about that, and when I got it in my hands, I wasn't disappointed. It's a solid piece of cast iron. There is a cutout center section, sort of like the Weber Gourmet series, and I haven't done it myself, but I would venture to guess that the Weber stuff will fit in this, as well as Char Griller has their own accessories as well. Now both the center cut portion and the grill grate itself have little attachment spots for the grill grabber tool that Char Griller includes with this, and it also has an upper warming rack that you can use also. Just like any piece of cast iron, it's seasoning up great. After every cook, you know, I brush it down while it's still warm. I'll go ahead and season it up with some vegetable oil, and that seasoning's just going on there great. It doesn't look old and tattered yet, and as long as I keep taking care of it, I expect it to keep holding up great. So if you look down the firebox, you'll see these 3 little ledge pieces, and that's to fit the Char Griller proprietary heat deflector, or they like to call it their smoking stone. Now, I always get a little bit nervous when you get to proprietary things. Companies sort of have a chance to squeeze you at that point because there's not a whole lot of other game in town, especially with an off-brand or a second brand like Char Griller. You know, I wasn't sure anybody was even going to make an optional heat deflector plate setter. So I was pretty pleasantly surprised when I found that I could find these for about $32 at the time, I believe. You know, it really made me feel good that they didn't take the opportunity to really squeeze the last cent out of their customer base. And it works great. The thing about a smoking stone or a heat deflector or plate setter, whatever you want to call it, most of the time they're optional equipment whenever you're getting a Kamado. But the thing is, when you're smoking, indirect heat's the name of the game, and that takes this optional accessory and makes it a must-have. So it's really nice to see it's very affordable on this cooker. Last thing I want to talk about is the ashtray on this cooker. Now, I don't have a Weber one-touch ash collector system. I don't have a Kamado Joe or a Vision Grill where you can remove the firebox, but I can't imagine the Akorn is much harder than any of those. Other than maybe having to crouch down a little bit further, it's got to be on that level. You literally flip 2 latches and pull it out. It is simple and fast, and those are 2 adjectives that ensure that people will do the simple maintenance to keep their cookers in great shape for a long time. Temperatures are the bread and butter of the Kamado style cookers, right? I mean, the whole design is centered around being able to hold temperatures and to be able to get those crazy high temperatures. At this point, I've been able to get up to a 900-degree temperature and hold it and verify it with an infrared thermometer. And I've also been able to get and hold a 230-degree temperature for 4 hours when we were cooking our Cajun-style pork butt. Now that makes me a happy camper. With that kind of range, I'll be able to cook anything I want, right? Except there's some issues. So first thing, the thermometer that comes on the Akorn, or at least mine, has been off by up to 200 degrees on some of those high temperature cooks. Now, to me, that's no big deal. I'll probably just replace it in the future. And most of the time, well, all the time, I'm running my ThermalWorks smoke to check the grate temperature anyways. So it's not a huge deal, but you need to know if you're getting this brand new and you're relying on that dome temperature thermometer, you can't really trust it. And also, when you're smoking something or even when you're cooking anything, you really want to know what that grate temperature is anyways. The hardest part about cooking on the Akorn, by far so far, has been getting it to hold those lower temperatures, that 230, 225, 235, really anything below 250. It seems to like to settle in at 250, but to get those lower temps, you've really got to be careful. It's a fine line between holding that temp and slowly snuffing out your fire and not realizing you're doing it. Now, admittedly in the beginning, I was just a little bit overzealous. I would start too big of a fire in the Kamado, and I underestimated just how quickly it would come into temp. And by the time I realized it and had shut everything down, it was still climbing. And when you overshoot this, and when I say overshoot, by the time it was done climbing, I had overshot it by like 100 degrees. There's really no good way to bring it back down. You can do one of 2 things in my opinion, unless there's another option I'm not aware of. The first is you can shut your vents down and try to wait it out. It's gonna be a while. These things are designed to hold that heat in there. The other thing that you can do is you can snuff out your fire and sort of try to evacuate the heat slowly without reigniting it. But then you're dealing with some smoldering. I don't think that's what you want to do. Just take it from me. When you're starting out, start small with the fire, get it closed down early, and just keep a close eye on it there in the beginning. Don't let it run away from you. Now, early on in one of my cooks, I got a question from LawDog57304, and he asked me why I was choosing to use lump charcoal over briquettes, and it was a fair question. And at the time, my answer was simply less ash. It's the classic Kamado answer, right? You use lump to avoid all the ash buildup, which will give you problems in your firebox. But I got to thinking about it, and it's a fair question. The reason I was thinking about it was I've had such a hard time holding those lower temps, and it's a known thing that lump charcoal burns hotter. Now, I know there are other things going on here, you know, air to fuel mixtures and whatnot, but I think it's worth giving a shot. So I think in my next cook that we're going to do, I'm going to get the lump out of there, and I'm going to try using some briquettes and see what sort of results I get, see if it's easier for me to hold those lower temperatures. My other issue with the temps on the Akorn really has nothing to do with the cooker itself. It's the instruction manual that comes with your Akorn. It tells you if you want 200 to 250 to have your top vent completely closed down. Now, I'm sure someone intelligent put this together and, You know, I'm sure they're right. If you open the bottom vent to a certain extent, the fire gets enough air to light up and hold a temperature like that. But if you've been cooking on any grill for any amount of time, you know that airflow is the name of the game, and I can't imagine that if your top vent is closed and that smoke is not getting out, that meat's going to taste any kind of good. It's not a huge deal for me. You know, I knew that just was wrong, and so I figured out how to make it hold those temps while promoting good airflow. The reason this bothers me is more for the new person out there that's just maybe trying to get into smoking, and they pick up this cooker and they try to replicate what they see in the instruction book to cook a piece of meat. I feel like it's going to ruin their time, and what I see with a lot of people who try to get into smoking meat is if they have that first one, maybe 2 times where they don't have a favorable experience, they don't create that rack of ribs like they get at their favorite joint, you know, it's tough or it's over smoked, it's got that dirty smoke taste to it, they'll quickly give up the hobby and not come back to it. And that's really not what I want to see at all. So it worries me a little bit that that's the instructions in the manual that comes with it. And it's just, I hope that anybody who reads that, you know, does some research on YouTube, maybe figure out how to regulate fire temperatures better. Maybe if someone, char griller, ever sees this, maybe they can address that in the manual. Who knows? One last note about the temps on the char griller is I find that it responds way more to the top vent than it does the bottom vent. And this is just a rough estimation here, but if you've got it close to under 1/6 of the way open on the top vent, you're smothering your fire. You might be smothering it slowly, but you'll notice your temps drop, and if you let it go long enough, your fire will go out. So, you know, start it, I like to start it about maybe 1/4 open, and adjust down a little bit from there, and then use the bottom damper for some fine tuning. But it really seems to respond best to that top vent. Okay, so if I really had anything to complain about on the Akorn, the fit and finish would be the biggest hole in the armor here. And honestly, I don't really have a whole lot to say. We talked about the affordability of some of the products used to make the cart. It's perfectly understandable for me at this price point. There are 2 other things though. First is I do have a small smoke leak. Now it's on the side. It is where the mesh gasket on the top of the lid, and this cooker only has 1 gasket and attached to the top of the lid. There's no gasket on the main body of the cooker like on other Kamados, but that mesh gasket attaches to a piece of plastic on the lid, and it just looks like there's a small gap, and I mean a small gap, between the top of the lid and that piece of plastic, and I get just a tiny smoke leak out of it. Now, I'm not too worried about it right now because honestly, even though I've been cooking a lot on this thing, it's still really early on, so I still believe there's a decent chance it will season up. You know, I'll keep an eye on it, and if it's still a problem, you know, we'll see if char griller is willing to do anything about it. But honestly, at this point, I haven't even told him about it because to me, we're still breaking this thing in. The other issue involves a gasket as well, and that is on the bottom of the cooker where you attach the ashtray. There's a gasket, and it looks like it's about to fall off on the back side. It's perfectly secured. It's not moving. I've pulled on it. When I'm cooking, I'll feel around it. There's no smoke and there's no heat seems to be leaking on it. It just doesn't look good right now. But again, you know, it's just a cosmetic thing. We'll keep an eye on it. If it becomes an issue in the future, we'll do something about it. Until then, we'll just keep on cooking. So as you can tell, I'm really happy with my Akorn cooker. You know, I was a little bit unsure when I first made that purchase, but a month later, it's awesome. I believe I'm getting that full Kamado experience. I'm cooking things in ways that I couldn't do if I would have gotten a indirect water smoker like I was looking at, or one of the other dedicated smoking boxes. And it's allowed me to step into this class for way less than I thought I was going to have to spend on a more traditional Kamado. Now, it's got some, right now we'll call them cosmetic issues, but hey, they're not stopping me, so for now, we're just going to keep on cooking. Now, if you remember, in my new smoker video, one of the criteria that I had when I was picking out a new smoker was it had to be something that I could cook in a competition on. And the local competition closest to me just opened up its registration, so Being that I've never done one before, I think it's time to start practicing. So I think in our next video, we're going to get some spare ribs and see if we can't turn out some competition style ribs on this thing. If you like this video, go ahead and hit that like button, and if you're new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe. Now if you're curious as to where you can get an Akorn Kamado cooker, I'm going to go ahead and put an affiliate link for Amazon down in the description box below. And y'all keep an eye out for that competition spare ribs video coming out. Until next time, y'all take it easy.